But first, after meeting with President Obama at the White House last Thursday, leaders of Sierra Leone, Senegal, Malawi, and Cape Verde were invited to the U.S. Institute of Peace on Friday to discuss consolidating democratic gains and promoting African prosperity.
Well, Shaka, the four leaders are credited with making significant progress toward democratic reforms and economic progress in their respective countries. And here is my report. It was in front of a crowd of hundreds that leaders of Malawi, Sierra Leone, Senegal, and Cape Verde spoke about the big gains their countries have made in the last few years. For the president of Malawi, Joyce Banda, the hardest thing was restoring relations with global financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund or the IMF.
By the time I became president, we were off track with IMF. And so we had to go very quickly, go back to IMF, get back on track, strengthen governance institutions, make sure that we get the letter of comfort that we required in order for other donors to come back, including the UK, that had cut our relationship with Malawi.
For Senegalese President Macky Sall, who's only been in power for about 12 months, it's been a year of economic and political reforms. It may be too early to evaluate the results. His agenda, he says, is still a work in progress. He spoke through an interpreter.
We're trying to improve AGOA. We're seeking to invest private investments at the international level. We're trying to strengthen the rule of law, to have an independent justice system.
But Mr. Sall also says that Africa is a continent on the move.
The Africa of 2013 has nothing to do with the cliches that are often expressed to talk about civil wars, where you talk about coups. But bear in mind, you had your own wars. You had the Civil War. There were wars in Europe up until 1945. Africa has just become independent for the most case since 1960. So it is normal that should be conflicts remaining here and there. In terms of the overall dynamic of the continent, we are moving towards prosperity, moving towards democracy.
Mr. Sall reminded the audience that Africa is the cradle of mankind and can be magical in terms of diversity, natural resources, and its men and women. His Sierra Leonean counterpart, Ernest Bai Koroma, told the audience that his country is no longer the one of blood diamonds. Instead, it's become an investment destination.
Sierra Leone is the place to do business. This has been recognized by the World Bank, the IMF. Last year, our economy was referred to as the hottest economy, a place to do investment, and we registered a very high rate of growth.
Prime Minister Jose Maria Neves of Cape Verde believes it's the responsibility of African leaders to develop a clear strategy for the continent's future that takes advantage of all its assets. The island, located along the western coast of Africa, is said to be one of the most democratic nations in the region. But in order to sustain a democracy, Neves, who spoke through an interpreter, says certain things are needed.
There is no development without stability. There's no development without democracy.
He added that Africa still faces many challenges, but it's also the continent of the future.
It has enormous talent, enormous capabilities, and all we need to do is to really gather all this capacity, all this capability, all this talent, and make it work towards the development of Africa.
Well, Shaka, these African leaders came to the United States not as beggars this time, they told me. They were here to show a new Africa, one that's on the move. Therefore, they are in search of a true partnership where everyone will benefit. Shaka?
Thanks.